Hello again. This video is the first in a two-part series where we're going to make the King of all Cosmos from Katamari. In this video, we'll cover the sculpting, and in the second video, we'll cover everything else. So we're going to start with a face here. This character has quite a distinctive face, so I hope I can capture it. As I'm starting to sculpt here, the first thing I'm thinking about is I want to get the big planes of the face onto my model. I find that for male faces, it's really important to accentuate the plane changes of the face. For female faces, you can get away with like smoothing everything out, but for male faces, you typically want to make them more rugged and pronounced. Another really important step early on is to carve out the eye socket. A lot of beginners underestimate how indented the eyes are on the face, so don't make that mistake. But yeah, you'll see me continue to refine the planes of the face as we go on. Before you put in any details, really you should be worrying about the planes. By the way, you'll see the recording jump around a little bit. This is because the free version of Bandicam only allows you to record up to 10 minutes. In some cases, I also forgot to start up the recording again, so some footage was lost. But I would say something like 75 to 80% of the footage has been filmed, so this is more or less the complete process of making this character. So anyway, if you don't know where to start with these planes of the face that I mentioned, some planes to keep in mind are the forehead. Make sure to capture the curvature of the forehead, the cheekbone. In the case of the cheeks, there's a lot of variation actually, depending on what kind of face you're making. Just make sure that to start with you have a clean plane transition. Then there's the eye socket. You might want to round it out, or you might want to have like a plane that sort of points upwards, that links up with the cheek. Then there's the big planes of the face. So for example, just under the eye, there should be a plane that points diagonally and up. When you get to the side of the skull, obviously there should be a pretty harsh plane transition. And when you get to the area under the cheekbone, the plane should be pointing slightly downwards and diagonally. And finally, don't forget about the chin. A lot of male characters have a pronounced chin. There's obviously the mass of the chin, and then often there's these two masses under the mouth that merge into the mouth. But yeah, these shapes should help you to get you started. Sculpting is an iterative process, so you go over the same areas again and again and refine them. Don't try to sculpt in the details immediately because you're going to be sad. You're either going to find out that the proportions are wrong, so you have to redo everything, or maybe the detail that you're going to make is not going to fit in with the rest of the face once you have the rest of the details in. Just like in painting, you want to paint in layers. You don't want to hyper focus on one area at a time. But yeah, once the big shapes are in, it's time to work on the medium scale details, such as the lips. You'll see me struggle with the lips a lot in this video. I think I actually made them like 3 times, and to be honest, I'm still not happy with the result. One of the problems of modeling lips is that it's really difficult to isolate the top lip from the bottom lip. You can use a mask modifier to help in this. I just find it a really annoying workflow, so I didn't actually do it here. But yeah, as far as the shape of the lips goes, I think of it as 3 masses for the top lip and 2 masses for the bottom lip. So for the top lip, there's this almost like a wedge shape in the middle, and then there's 2 like flat shapes on the sides. And for the bottom lip, there's these 2 bulbous shapes. Within those shapes, I also want to get a plane transition going. The way I like to think about it is that there's a plane transition where the lip goes from being on the inside of the mouth to the outside. One thing I should point out here that some of these tips are based on realism, but a lot of them are only based on what looks good to me. So I guess follow these tips at your own risk. I mean, you can see the end result. You can see whether you want a similar result. But yeah, the rest of the face is not particularly special. The nose is literally just a triangle, or a cone, I should say. I was contemplating whether I should even model it in or have it be a separate object. By the way, as far as tools go here, the only tools that I'm really using here are the clay strips brush, the flatten brush, and the grab brush. Occasionally I'll also use the draw sharp brush, but not at this stage. I think these are really all the brushes you need to make a decent looking model. If you're overwhelmed by all the brushes that are available, just keep it simple. You don't need all the fancy brushes to actually make something that's good. The main skill of an artist is the skill of observation. That means that you can look at your work and pinpoint what's wrong and move it towards the direction that would make it better. That's why an artist can make art even with imprecise and bad tools. This also works in the opposite way. So if you're unhappy with your art, most likely you're actually unhappy with your skills of observation. So you need to train your eye to actually like see things for what they are and to be able to recognize what you need to change about them to make them more like the things you want them to be like. But anyway, at this point, I'm almost done with the face. I'll come back to it periodically, but at some point, I have to start working on other things because I'm never going to be completely happy with it. So the next order of business is to model in the facial hair. This will make the character look a little bit less awkward. The facial hair in this case is quite important to establish the silhouette of the face. So there's not a whole lot to say about the facial hair, to be honest. I'm just tracing out the outlines with a mesh line, and then I'm filling in the faces. To get the three-dimensional shape, I am looking for the front view, again tracing out the silhouette that I want. If you've watched the first video on the channel, which is about making faces, this is very similar to that approach. But yeah, topologically speaking, we don't actually care that much about the topology of the hair because we know it's not going to deform really. So yeah, it's really all about the silhouette. So yeah, I'm going to show you a brief time lapse of the rest of the process, and I'll come back when I start working on the body. Okay, turns out before the body, I actually made the crown. Once again, the crown is very, very simple. It's basically just a circle, and every other point of the circle I pulled up, basically, that's the crown. To select every other point, I used the checker deselect option in the selection menu. There's a lot of really useful selection options in there if you look. But anyway, let's do the body finally. So the first step is to make a base mesh to capture the proportions and the big shapes. We're going to sculpt over this anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be like good enough. I think I'm just going to skip over this because there's nothing really here that you need to see. So when it comes to the body, a lot of what I said about the face still applies. Focus on the big shapes first. Focus on the plane changes. Focus on defining the planes. Don't worry about the details at this stage. Apart from those general tips, really this is just raw anatomy. Now my anatomy is not that amazing either, but I know enough that I can get by basically. I'm not using any references here, I'm just going from memory. So I was contemplating whether I should go over the muscles and the big anatomical features and like comment on them one by one. I've decided not to do that because this is not really meant to be a tutorial. This is more meant to be like a video showing you how I did it. If you would like me to do a proper sculpting tutorial, leave a comment. But yeah, I think for the time being, I'm going to leave you with a time lapse of me finishing up the body. And I'll come back if something interesting happens.
Do your best. Picnic 기분 feels so good. 素敵な afternoon. プラチナみんな yeah. 固めて転がす I love you いつでも smile for you. 君だけにラム Hey so 頑張らなくちゃ Compilation Compilation お揃いの T シャツ
So yeah, this is pretty much it. This was a bit of a new experience for me. I've modeled men before, but it's not really my strong suit, so I really could use the practice. But yeah, my man's is looking good. I'm relatively happy with the result here, and I can't wait to see how he's gonna look with all the materials and stuff. There might actually be 2 more videos in this series, depending on how long it takes. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I'll see you next time.